Well, hello. Happy New Year and Happy New Tier because we're kicking off 2026 by a tier ranking of all 15 albums from Toto, one of my favourite bands and one of the great bands of all time, which is why they're one of my favourite bands. Makes sense, doesn't it? Yes. Great. So I'm going to be putting all of those albums into one of my 5 tiers, which I will walk you through. They're pretty self-explanatory. Right up the top, we have Toto-ally Awesome. Uh, don't really need any further explanation from that, do you? Second down is Forged in Greatness, yes, referencing the famous Toto sword that adorns many of their album covers, and those are really, really classy albums, just not quite as perfect as the ones above them. Underneath that is Holding the Line. Tier albums, decent, maybe there's a flaw or two on them, but still worth hearing. Not worth hearing is the next category, which is Poor-Caro / lukewarm. Yeah, I get a bit punny with these sometimes. I can't help myself. These are albums that are bad, really. Maybe there's a glimmer of light somewhere on them, but overall not so great. But still better than the bottom tier, which is our old friend the poo emoji and my initials, JSB. Because they also stand for just so bad. Now, are there going to be Toto albums in that category? Wait and see. All right. Now, of course, what I'm going to be doing is giving my opinions, because those are the only ones I have. But you probably have some of your own, and you are more than welcome to share them along the way. Let me know how you rank each of these albums, where you diverge from me, and where we align. And we'll start at the beginning with the debut. So, Toto from 1978 is going straight into top tier category, Toto-ally Awesome. I mean, this is as pretty much perfect a debut as you can get. The band's firing on all cylinders right from the off. You've got, of course, David Paich, founder of the band, keyboardist, vocalist, and key songwriter. He wrote 8 of the 10 songs on here, including, of course, all 3 singles, Hold the Line, I'll Supply the Love, and Georgie Porgy. 3 quite different songs, and he pulls them off brilliantly. But the whole band is great. Jeff Poor-Caro, of course, on drums, Steve Lukather the guitars and vocals, David Hungate on the bass, Bobby Kimball on lead vocals, though he's only on lead vocals on 4 of the 10 tracks, which, he still manages to somehow dominate proceedings despite that. And finally, Steve Poor-Caro, keys and vocals. They would maintain this lineup for the first 4 albums. And the second of those albums, of course, came out the following year, 1979. It was Hydra. And where's that one going? Yeah, it's going right at the top as well, because it's a very different album from the debut. It's nothing like as commercial, which was reflected in its sales. It managed to go gold, only scraped the top 40 in the US. #1 in Norway, though, so go Norway. Only had one hit single from this one, which is 99. Not really representative of the album, but, there's that and Mama's kind of a jazzier style. You've got proggy stuff in the title track and St. George and the Dragon. Some balls to the wall rockers with All Us Boys and White Sister, which is possibly still their greatest rocker of all and is a mainstay in the setlist to this day. Only thing that I can say against this album is it could have been even better if they had included Tale of a Man on the track list, maybe to replace Lorraine at the end of side 1. That would have given us 2 Bobby tracks on the first side as well. Because again, Bobby has 4 songs, which should make it feel like he's on more of this album because there's only 8 songs. But 3 of those songs are the last 3 on the album, so it's quite a strange mix of where the lead vocals are spread. But other than that, sheer class, and it's definitely a great album to play for people who think that Toto don't rock. As is, in its own way, Turn Back from 1981. The only thing that I would say about this album is that the production is mid. It's the only Toto album where the production isn't basically perfect. And some of the songwriting is a little bit off as well. So no, it's not going in Fortune Greatness. It's mid-tier, holding the line. Still a good album. Goodbye Eleanor should have been a hit and was in Japan. Good for the Golden Gun and English Eyes are 2 great rockers to kick the album off with. But along the way, again, only 8 tracks here. A few of them not quite as well written as some of the earlier songs. Maybe David Paich's songwriting well was getting a little bit dry at this point, and Steve Lukather hadn't quite put up to the songwriting levels that he would do on future releases, but it's still worth a listen. And it is some people's favourite. So, as I say, if it's yours, let us know. Now, here's an album that is a lot of people's favourite Toto album, Toto IV. It's not a favourite of mine for reasons I'll mention very shortly, but it is still great. So, can't quite make it top tier, but it is forged in greatness because it sold gazillions of copies, won truckloads of Grammys, and had massive hit singles for reasons. Um, it's Toto with their backs against the wall, needing to come up with a hit and more than delivering the goods. As a result of that, it's Toto with the raw edges completely sanded off, so it's all super smooth, which is why it's a yacht rock favourite. Even the rockers are smooth, like Rosanna is a rocker, it really is, and Lovers on the Night, but they don't ruffle the feathers so much as some of their earlier stuff does. Still some great songs here. And of course, you bookend with two legendary songs with Rosanna and, of course, Africa, a song that will outlive the planet, probably, let alone any of us. And yeah, it's not an album I actually turn to that often, but when I do, you have to be struck by it's just a perfect commercial album. Um, and as I say, sold a ton for a reason. My biggest problem really is that a lot of people think this is what Toto always like, and they're really not. They aren't one of those bands where all their albums are the same. Um, yeah. Anyway, moving on to an album that definitely isn't the same. Um, we get to their fifth album, Isolation, which is the first without Bobby Kimball on vocals and without David Hungate on bass. He's replaced by another Poor-Caro brother in the form of Mike. And for the one album only, we have Fergie Frederiksen on lead vocals. And my God, what a voice. Okay, apparently it was quite difficult to get these vocals out of him in the studio, but man, was it worth the effort because they are astoundingly good, as are the songs. And this is my favorite Toto album by far. It could have a category of its own, way, way, way up above Toto-ally Awesome. I just love it to bits, top to bottom, start to finish. Fergie's incredible. The songs without him are also pretty good, apart from the only damp squib on this album is the closing track, Holy Anna, which doesn't really fit. It's not bad, but given everything that comes before it, it leaves you on a slightly damp note. But even still, if you haven't heard Isolation and you think you know Toto, you don't. Go listen to it now. Forget about the rest of this list. You can come back to that later. Great album. It couldn't last because Fergie didn't last. But we get another great vocalist in the form of Joseph Williams on album number 6 from 1986. It's Fahrenheit. Now, my issue with this album is it's really soft. Um, super, super soft. After the hard rock in Isolation, it's even more noticeable. It's still a classy album, but I've got to put it in the mid-tier, holding the line category because it doesn't really ever get out of second gear. You do have a couple of upbeat numbers like Till the End and Can't Stand It Any Longer. Got another big hit here with I'll Be Over You from Steve Lukather. And yeah, um, one of Steve Poor-Caro's greatest songs is on here as well, Leah, but that's another ballad. You've got Miles Davis making a guest appearance in the closing track, and that's super smooth jazz. Yeah, if you like the yachty soft side of Toto, this is an album for you. I mean, the songwriting is top notch, but yeah, for me personally, it's not one I turn to an awful lot. Unlike the next album, which was their seventh album and was called The Seventh One. Hmm. And that is going straight back up to Toto-ally Awesome. This is the promise of the Joseph Williams era come to fruition. It's a much better mix of pop rock, soft rock, and harder rock. You've got their final US top 40 hit in Pamela, which was also a much bigger hit in Europe, as was Stop Loving You, which is, you know, in Europe is as big as Africa and Rosanna. The rest of the world kind of ignored it to their detriment, the fools. Um, but you've also got great album tracks like Mishaga and Home of the Brave, which is probably the most popular deep cut amongst die-hard Toto fans. Um, yeah, it is a great one. Yeah, there's nothing I don't like about this album, and the interplay between brothers Jeff on drums and Mike on bass is the best work they ever did together. They worked together a lot, both in and out of Toto. Yeah, it's just killer. As is, to a greater or lesser extent, the next proper album. I'm not covering past to present here from 1990, but 1992's Kingdom of Desire, the last with Jeff on drums, because of course he sadly passed away just before it was due to be released. And this one is blooming good, but it's not quite up with those ones. So therefore, it's coming into the forged in greatness category. It's the 90s, and you're going to hear this a lot about the 90s albums. It's a bit long, um, about 70 minutes, and there's not too much I'd lose really, but is a bit of a slog. Um, and one of the reasons is that you've got Steve Lukather fully taking charge of lead vocals, and he does a great job. But it's the first Toto album where you've only got that one vocalist on it, really the only one, to be fair. And I've always liked the mix of vocalists on Toto albums, even when, say, for example, on Isolation, I could have happily had Fergie on everything. It still is a nice balance when the other singers come in. Um, it's another more rocking Toto album. Jeff was keen to rock, show what they could do, and they did a great job with that. Yeah, I've nixed Two Hearts. It's an okay song, but yeah, still a great way to end the initial run of Toto albums, and that could have been the end right there and then. But they pressed on, bringing Simon Phillips on board for the next album in 1995, Tamboo. Now, this one, for me, I've flipped between Forged in Greatness and Holding the Line. I'm going to put it in this mid tier. No, not that one. This one. This one. There you go. Um, Again, it's a long album, and this one really has a lot of similar sounding ballads on it that you could happily lose a couple of them and not miss a thing, really. But it kicks off in great style with Gift of Faith. I will remember as one of the best ballads they ever did, and Slipped Away as well. So the opening trifecta is astonishing. After that, there's still some other good stuff along the way, but a little bit more varied. Uh, yeah, Simon sounds amazing, and the production is incredible. But yeah, just overall a little bit long, a little bit samey at times. Um, Next up is Toto 20, which is not really a proper album, but they count it in their numbering, so I'm including it in this list. And again, we're going mid tier on this one because it's not a proper album. Like Tambu, it kicks off in fantastic style with Going Home, which should have been on the past to present album, but was mixed by the record company. You got Bobby Kimball coming back to sing lead vocals on that track, which was from 1989-ish. Um, More on him in a moment. Then you get Tale of a Man, which, as I say, should have been on Hydra, but at least it turned up here. And you got some of the songs that they demoed before becoming a proper band, which are fun to hear, and a great live version of Africa recorded in Africa. Um, yeah, a couple of songs from this have mysteriously vanished from the streaming version of the album. So if you've got your old physical copy, hang on to it. But yeah, that was kind of a 20th anniversary celebratory release, and it did a very good job of what it was trying to do. Obviously, not as cohesive as most of the albums, but it wasn't meant to be. Um, Another album that's really not cohesive is Minefields from 1999. This is the return of Bobby Kimball officially on shared lead vocals with Steve Lukather, and this is the longest of their long albums of the 90s. It's almost a full 80 minutes long, and it's awesome. I love it to bits. I can't quite put it in the top category because it is overlong, and you could cut a couple of songs without too much trouble. But it's a great mix of styles on here. Bobby sounds amazing, better than he ever did on the original four albums, as far as I'm concerned. And Luke's great as well. The production from Tambu with Elliot Shiner, I don't know which, um, equally great here. And yeah, I mean, this is one of those albums that's I've always loved. It's one of the controversial albums in the catalog. A lot of people rate this right down the bottom of the Toto catalog, but I don't, which is why it's here. Yeah, one thing about all these '90s albums being so long, if you've read Steve Lukather's book, The Gospel According to Luke, he lays the blame for that squarely at David Page's door. Um, to which I would just point out the length of Luke's 90s solo albums. Pot, kettle, black, Mr. Lukather. Anyway, we move into the 2000s, and the runtime from now on becomes much more manageable. Unfortunately, the album itself that kicked off their 21st century output was Through the Looking Glass, which is a covers album, and not a good one, particularly. I mean, I don't like covers albums in the first place, but I thought if anyone can do a great covers album, it's Toto. As it turns out, nobody could do a great covers album. This is not great stuff. Pretty unimaginative song listing, and unimaginative versions of those songs. I mean, who needs Toto doing a by the numbers cover of Sunshine of Your Love, or House of the Rising Sun, or a bad cover of It Takes a Lot to Laugh, Takes a Train to Cry from Dylan. A couple of bright spots. Burn Down the Mission is great. They do Bob Marley's Could You Be Loved, which is kind of a bit left field, but I would have preferred them to take more chances like that rather than play it safe. In fairness, the reason for this album existing is that they wanted to do a 25th anniversary tour. The promoters said it'd be great to have an album to go with it to help promote it, and they didn't have time to write new stuff, so that's what they came out with. It's a blip in the Toto catalogue. Yeah, another 4 years before we get a proper Toto album, and that was in the form of Falling in Between from 2006. By now they're on a minor label, Frontiers Records, Italian label, and the results are spectacular. Boom, right up the top, Toto-ally Awesome. Here you have, again, Bobby and Luke sharing the vocals, but also David Paich comes back to the fore for the first time in a long while to do some vocals, particularly on Spiritual Man, which is kind of his showcase piece on this one. But you've got Bottom of Your Soul, where you actually get Joseph Williams returning to do some vocals as well. And the title track, which is just killer. You've also got an additional keyboardist in the form of Greg Fillinganes joining for this album. Paich wasn't touring, so Greg came into the band and was doing all the touring side of things. But with this album, they made him an official member as well. And he gets a lead vocal showcase on a track called Let It Go, and that is brilliant as well. No End in Sight finishes it off. And, oh, look, we've got so many awesome albums that the Toto logo is getting in the way, so we'll shunt you over a bit. Okay, that's better. Look, there's even room for one more to go up there. I wonder if there will be one to put in there. All right, after Falling in Between, of course, things happened. The next Toto album, which didn't come out until 2015, that was Toto 14. And yeah, it's going straight into the top category as well. What a brilliant way to properly return. 5 years into the reunion, Joseph Williams is on lead vocals for the band again at this point, and both David Paich and Steve Poor-Caro are back in the band. Full time. Paich is touring, Steve Poor-Caro is touring. I mean, he's always appeared on the albums even after he left after the seventh one, but he's got a cool track here, The Little Things. Again, this is like Minefields, that it's stylistically all over the place, but also cohesive in a way that that album wasn't. And you've got some great prog at the end with Great Expectations, some classic R&B stuff like Chinatown. It's just top stuff all the way through, really varied. Joe, Luke, Paich all sharing vocals. Steve does his own track, of course. Yeah, it's just a wonderful album, and so much better than had any right to be. Of course, the interesting thing about that is it's on Frontiers Records, and the only reason it exists is because Frontiers sued the band and said, "You owe us an album." And they decided that, well, if we have to make an album out of litigation, it's going to be the best thing we can possibly do, and it was. Um, yeah, that only leaves us with one more album, and as I said at the top, it's kind of a 2018 album because it came out in what was called the All-In box set, which was the albums up to Minefields in 1999. Basically, the stuff on Columbia/Sony, and a little kind of bonus album appeared here, which was Old is New. And it's kind of similar to Toto 20 in that it's kind of old songs revisited along with some new songs. And it's going there in, you can see it, yeah, into the holding the line category because some of the things here really worked. They reworked unfinished songs from the 80s. So you get the return of Jeff and Mike Poor-Caro on different tracks, and David Hungate, in fact. Um, there's a couple of new songs as well. In a Little While is probably the most beautiful song that they've ever done. Alone was a great new song. Spanish Sea is one of the reworked songs, and that even got radio play on this side of the pond. Pretty cool song. But the second half of it doesn't quite fly. Chelsea is a bit weak. Oh Why just sort of sits there, and there's the weird track at the end, We'll Keep on Running, which I kind of like, but it's, yeah, not perfect. No, it's a shame that it's not a proper end to their recording career, which is kind of what we've been led to believe is the case. A lot of the band are still working together on different solo projects, but they probably won't record as Toto again for various reasons. So this is what we're left with. And what we're left with is a pretty wildly strong catalogue. I mean, even these albums in the mid-tier have a lot more good than bad on them, but these, what have we got? 9 albums in the top 2 tiers, and you know, you could make quibbles about a couple of those if you really wanted, but they're just brilliant. If you've only heard Toto 4, dive into it. Just pick one of these at random. You could go with Isolation. That would be my first. Actually, it wouldn't. I'd actually say start with the debut, because you've got every aspect of the band on there. Then go to Isolation, and then go where you want. You really can't miss with any of those, or even those. And really, these are worth hearing as well. Only one to really avoid is the covers album. Well, that's my opinion anyway. And I hope you enjoyed my trawl through a very, very solid catalogue here. Do let me know what you think of Toto's albums, especially if you know them all. Whatever level of Toto fandom or otherwise you have, all comments are equal, all opinions are valid, and I look forward to chatting to you in the comments below. As I say, all of these albums are quite different, so if you have different tastes or specifications of what you enjoy in Toto, then I'm happy to give you recommendations of the albums that are going to work best for you. Yeah, so there we are. All that it remains for me to say is you can have a look around for plenty more Toto stuff on the channel, including hearing 4 random songs from Isolation. So you can check that out, hit that pretty purple logo to subscribe to the channel for all sorts of musical chat and listening. And I'll say bye for now, but I hope not for long.
It's the end, but the moment has been prepared for.